All right. So, everybody, my guest today is Jeremy Chan, who's the founder at the Jonah Group. Jeremy is a longtime software developer and technology enthusiast with a broad range of education and experience in both biology and computer science. He became an accidental entrepreneur after the dot-com boom bust cycle of the late 90s, joining with two colleagues to start a software services firm, Jonah Group, in the May of 2001. They currently have about 130 people, mostly software engineers, working on custom software development. So it's great to have you here as another agency owner. So thank you very much.
All right, glad to be here, Jan.
Definitely. So you started the company quite like almost 20 years ago, right? So what was that like back in 2001? Maybe why did you decide to even do this? Were you a software developer before or as a freelancer?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, we were the three owners of the company were all developers or architects, and we had worked for another company called Mountain Lake Software, and we were purchased in the dot-com era, 1998. And we ran with that company for 3 years. And, you know, the new parent wasn't really a software company. They were more of a financial print company that was trying to capitalize on the dot-com. So, you know, frankly, they didn't really understand how to run a software shop or a software development consultancy. So they had bought 6 or 7 companies, and they successively shut each one down one after the other throughout the early 2000s. And we were the last to be shut down. So the Toronto office, that is. But that's not to say that we didn't have a lot of really good people already working in the company. They just they didn't know how to sell and service those clients. So a couple of colleagues and I decided that we would try to start up, and probably the worst time you could start a software company in the dot-com bust. You know, we kind of worked really hard and clawed our way through, you know, some initial gigs to get to the first big one, which really launched the company in 2001.
Yeah, one thing I envy you is definitely your perspective, because in 2001 I was 10 years old, so I don't understand how this whole thing evolved, and I just jump into it. But you were in the beginning, like, of this whole dot-com bubble, right? So it's a great perspective to have, and like you can see how the industry is changing much better probably than anybody who's younger.
Yeah, it is quite interesting.
Yeah. And so what are your, maybe what services did you start with offering back in 2001, and how did that change over the years? What are you maybe looking at now?
So we were software folks. The 3 owners are all software developers and methodology experts. And so we really kept with enterprise software consulting. We did mostly web-based projects back then. So Corba was a big thing, and we were doing a lot of migrations from Corba to the web and all the new application servers, the Java application servers that were coming about at the time. So at a point in time, we actually hosted CIBC.com, which is a large Canadian bank. We hosted their website and all of their email. It was really early days before banks even had that kind of thing. But later on, about 6 years in to the company's history, we started getting asked to do more data-focused projects. So we implemented a data warehousing practice, and we started selling that service. And then a couple of years after that, while we hadn't been doing the design work, the front-end design work, we started to bring that in-house as well. So we created an interactive group. And that's pretty much how we continue throughout the year. So when we see there's a need from our customers, we try to get ahead of that by about 2 years by, you know, training up and offering that service. So lately we've been doing, you know, all the things that are modern these days: big data projects, machine learning, and blockchain projects, as well as our bread and butter, which are the web projects, web, mobile, and data warehousing projects.
Got it. So what would you say is kind of do you have a core specialty, or do you prefer to kind of be more versatile, or, you know, generic in a way where you can build a product, but you can also build a startup, but you can also work with enterprise on big data, like you can do it all?
Yeah, I mean, as it happens, we do a lot of work in the financial services sector. We're not exclusive to that sector, though. I mean, we do a lot of work with other industries as well. But financial services is all based on software these days, so there's a lot of opportunity there. So I would say that that's our biggest specialization. In terms of technology, we're not really a technology specialized company. I mean, work with just about every technology that there is, but we're more solutions focused. So we take an approach of if a customer has an issue that can be solved with technology, we will help them to both define it and actually configure that solution. Technology is just, it's not particularly interesting in and of itself unless it solves a problem. So we try to be problem solvers rather than technology focused. That said, I mean, the whole company is heavily technical. So we have about 135 people now. And I would say about 90 of those are, in the delivery organization, software delivery.
Right. So what do you say to those founders of agencies who put like, we're a React Native software house, or we're like, they start with technology, not with the solution or the problem, but like we do this. Like, do you think that's a bad approach? Or
That's not a bad approach. It's just not the one that we've chosen. I mean, you can always try to differentiate on the basis of specialized knowledge, and that could be in business domain as well as technology. So there's nothing wrong with that. When it comes to custom work, however, I mean, there's usually like 5 or 10% of that specialized knowledge that's required, and then the rest of it is, your ability to execute a software project and your ability to service the customer, and your knowledge of a broad range of technologies. Because what works for one customer won't work for another. So that's not the kind of area that a specialist company will play in. Sometimes when we really need some specialized knowledge that we don't have in-house, then we will partner with someone out in the industry, and that's more specialized.
I'm going to use what you...
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm going to use what you just said to speak with one of our clients about this. Like, this was a great rebuttal. So I assume that if that solution focus, mostly bigger companies value that rather than like startups. So do you prefer to work with mid-size or enterprise level companies? Or
we like to solve hard problems. So if you want to keep creative people engaged and interested, and working for you, you got to give them something interesting to work on. So be it large or small, if it's has some interesting facet. It could be the technology itself, or it could be the problem you're trying to solve, or it could be, the fact that it has a social value. Lots of things are important to different people these days. So, and it's very competitive to try to hire these creative types. It's a really creative class of people, software developers. So you need to give them interesting things to work on, and so we're always on the lookout. And the ones that seem to be the most interesting for the really good developers are the ones that are, that are challenging and difficult in some way.
So you have about 130 people or something like that?
Yeah.
And so what's the percentage of data scientists compared to like somebody who's a developer, whether front-end or back-end or mobile?
Well, we have data developers. I wouldn't say we have any data scientists on board. I mean, we have a lab in which we're always learning about that part of the equation, and we're experimenting with it. And so there's a few folks within the company who, are enthusiasts, and so they pursue that path, and they help us out to know what we have to learn. But when it comes to hard data scientists, we don't really have data scientists per se, but we know where to find them. So we have worked with them in the past.
Right. I was just referring because you've mentioned big data or something before, so I thought that that's a part of this. But
yeah, it's certainly part of our offering. So we did a big data project with AMD. So they're a large graphics card manufacturer, and that one wasn't data science per se. It was just like figuring out how to handle the onslaught of terabytes of data every minute, and have that land and be able to analyze that in some way. That the most difficult part of that project was just to be able to open up the taps and receive all of that data that quickly, and then shut them down, and then do further transformations. So that wasn't a part of that project. We do have some lab work that is using data science and machine learning. So you'll see that all over our blog, what we're experimenting with. But most of the projects that might use that are still kind of emerging, I would say. So, for example, H&R Block is a customer, and they have some initiatives that are on the way that will allow us to use these techniques more fully to help them with their newer products. So I can't talk too much about that, but
yeah. Got it. Are you all in one location?
Yeah.
Yes.
So everybody works out of Toronto here. I mean, we're big believers in just face-to-face communication in terms of increasing that collaborative capacity. I mean, everybody works remotely these days, but if you've
Mhm.
ever been on a remote call where you're trying to accomplish something, that's difficult, or if you are just simply trying to explain an abstract concept, there's so many nonverbal cues that happen. So it doesn't really work well over the phone, especially since software is so abstract. And we're a consulting company, so we really value face-to-face, in-person communication with our teams. So it's a little more expensive, of course, because we don't use offshore folks, but we're also a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I've heard from a couple of founders, it's quite hard. We have about 35 people, and if you go past like 50 or 80, then it's like the culture gets lost and you don't really have touch with those people. And so sometimes what they do, they set up different offices. So like in the US, you will have an office in New York with 30 people, the same in LA, the same here. And it's like the culture is still small, but it's all one company just separated into smaller
Yeah, I
companies.
think that can work. I think that I've heard theories that above 60 is the magic number. You need to kind of instantiate a new company or maybe a new office, but they will have different cultures. So if you ever try to kind of mash them together, there's usually some rubbing of some personalities there. Not really personalities, but it's more about the culture. I mean, culture is a very strong activator of good work. And once you kind of got yourself into a groove like that, it's hard. It takes years to kind of mesh those two things if you ever have to.
Have you ever had a case where, let's say you've had a bigger project where you had to engage, let's say 20 people, and then the client leaves you, and then you have to fire those people, or that something needs to happen? How do you then? So the question really is like, how do you balance the acquiring new clients or projects versus like recruiting new people and just balancing those two things all the time, because it seems to be hard.
Yeah, I mean that's especially for consulting, that's the canonical problem. It's a very difficult one to solve. The philosophical answer is if you are planning to succeed, then you just start hiring the best people you can find, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't. I mean, we used to do this, like we'd get a project, then we'd staff up, get a project, staff up. Now
Yeah.
we staff up a bit, get a project, staff up a bit,
Mm.
and it's more. It's more risky, but on the other hand, if you truly commit to what you're doing and you do good work and you have a plan and a strategy to grow, you will grow. That's just normally what happens. I mean, of course, there's unforeseen circumstances, but you can't predict those anyway. So you might as well just plan for success rather than planning for failure.
So did you grow organically to that number,
Yeah.
130 people? Just over the
We
years,
grew
it just went up.
organically up until about 90, and then we decided, you know what, we're gonna actually try to grow at a higher rate. So our organic rate was around 12-13% annually, and our new target is 20 to 25%. And when you make that big of a jump, there are a lot of different things you have to do, investment-wise as well. So you're planning to not make a lot of money during those couple first investment years, and if you're successful, then you can grow at a faster pace. But you really do have to get that organic hat off if you want to grow and go for it. Basically.
Yeah,
That's what I've been doing for the last couple of years.
it sounds good. That's what I'm doing now. And so is that like investing into marketing and sales, or being more like predictive in your selling and marketing?
For us, it's more on the sales side than it is marketing. I mean, you have to have good looking professional materials and a good message that people want to hear. And of course, that message has to be true. So in terms of the value system and whatnot, but we're not a company, so we're not differentiating on the basis of features.
Yeah.
We're differentiating in terms of service. So it's really a trust-based sell. Like if the customer is looking to develop a trust with you during the sales process. So it's more investing in our entire sales process and our pipeline and figuring out what we want that customer journey to look like, as opposed to kind of bringing in thousands of people into the top of the funnel and carving those through until you happen to get a win. It's more tactical. It's more strategic, I should say, than that.
Yeah, definitely. And so what kind of, maybe what's the breakdown of your sales process then? Let's forget the marketing. So like once you have a lead, what happens? What tools do you use? Maybe even something custom, but we use HubSpot, or there's different systems. And then what's the journey like in that process? Because we have like 15 steps usually. So I don't know if you can talk about those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's very custom. You might have someone call you up and say, "I need this," and then a week later you're working. Um,
Mm-hmm.
or more typically, it's they want to get to know you. They don't initially, they're trying to develop a sense of what you're like, what your value system is, whether or not you mesh together. So it's a lot of open conversation. The sales cycle can be very long, sometimes 18
Mm-hmm.
months when you start talking to someone until they're ready to go. A lot of things have to line up. They have to be comfortable with you. You have to have people available. They have to have the money available. They have to have their folks ready to start working. So, instantiating this custom
Yeah.
software team it's a long sort of a process. Usually it helps when their business just really depends on it. They have to get something done. That's really when we can be a lot more efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the sales cycle it's usually like a few meetings to start. Then you start talking about possibilities. They reveal some of the projects they're working on over the phone or in person. We start to suggest certain ways we could try to solve those, what services we could bring to bear. Then we start down the proposal process, which is planning and estimating, and sometimes that's an engagement in itself. We call it the
Mm-hmm.
discovery part of the engagement. So you spend 10-15% of the eventual budget to really lock down what the costs will be. And throughout that process, by this point, they should have either developed a comfort level with you that makes them want to move forward, or not. And if it doesn't, then we move on to the next customer. But we're pretty good we're very open, I guess, during the sales process about what we can do and what that's going to cost. So that's our style, I guess you could call it. And people who appreciate that or value that, I guess, tend to go with us.
So that proposal process does it include a specification? So let's say you can write up a technical spec that on a couple of pages. You can also maybe share with them some mockups, or maybe not even a prototype, but like a design or something that they can actually take, and even if they are not satisfied, they can use it somewhere else. Because that's how
Absolutely. I
usually
mean,
we do it. Yeah.
we try to give them, whenever we're working for someone, we try to give them, the value from that service upfront or very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Or on an ongoing basis, let's say. So when it comes to software, I mean, everybody's doing agile iterative delivery. So supposedly at the end of every sprint, you are ready to deploy that software. If they want to stop the project or pause it or just walk away, at least they have that value in their hands. When it comes to discovery, it's more about creating a part of the specification, a part of the technical architecture, maybe some proofs of concept to de-risk the project. And then, maybe there's a couple of people you staff the project with so that you don't have a whole team coming on board just right at the start, and there's too much thrash. So it's a gradual kind of ramp up, and we're aiming to give them something at all times that they can use. Generally, when it's working well, though, the customer doesn't just walk away like that. I mean, they've got a lot on the line as well, so
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. I one thing I would like to mention maybe is the lead nurturing thing, because what I found, most customers are not ready to engage in a software development project. It's very short window of time, so we have to get in the foot in the door in some design or something like that. But like as you mentioned, it's a long sales cycle. So what I've done is set up a lead nurturing system. So for every lead that we have and is not ready, and it's in some stage of the sales cycle and in some specific industry, we already have an experience, we feed them content or some sort of resource every week, so we stay on top of their mind. But it's not done through salesperson really, because that person will be maybe ready in another 3 or 6 months. But we stay on top of their mind, so that once the need, they have something going on, we are the first people who will do this, because I've done the research. No other software house is doing this, or like they are very lazy in sales, especially software companies. They depend on the founder only, right? Always. So if we do this, we can actually convert these 95% of people who weren't ready in the first call, and usually companies just forget about them, and we can actually utilize maybe 25% of those leads still for free, essentially. So
Yeah,
that's
no doubt.
something.
Lead nurturing and content is very important.
Mhm.
We're not cold calling and selling our service like our differentiators to customers. That's not how people buy these days. You know, that's why, I mean, the joke is those Best Buy commercials or those Future Shop, no, the Best Buy commercials where the customer walks in and they're attacked by salespeople. They just don't, people don't appreciate that. They want to take their time to learn about you, and they'll be doing that without your knowledge. So it is by, looking at what you publish online or your website or like you say, the content you send to them. If they find that valuable and they think that you're a reasonable and intelligent person, when they have a need, they'll come knocking. So that is really the way to go.
Are your clients mostly from Toronto area? Or? Yeah.
We have a lot in Toronto, some in Calgary, Vancouver, quite a few in the Detroit area.
Mm-hmm. And so do you get involved in RFPs, or is that something not really attractive for you?
Like I said, like RFPs, the situation is you get a document and you send them back a document, and we don't differentiate on the basis of text, right? We differentiate with our human beings. So if we're not able to get in front of them and explain what we do, it's not really a good fit for us, because not that we can't do the work, but they're much larger companies that have much larger marketing and proposal departments, and they will win on the basis of large, blocks of text, which may or may not reflect reality, but it just comes off better. We have to use our resources a little more, strategically. So when we're able to meet with a potential customer and ask them questions face to face and show them, what our approach is, then we'll do an RFP. But if it's just an anonymous process, which it has to be often because the sheer scale of some of these things, like especially if it's a government RFP, they have to avoid the look of impropriety. So, it's all done through paper, and that we don't usually do that.
Yeah, we just lost 3 RFPs since the start of the year, and there was
lost
money spent on them as well. Like you have to involve designers and you have to involve like people to come up with new ideas. It's usually doesn't work, but again, maybe it does in some cases. So it makes sense.
And we've won a few RFPs. Don't get me wrong, but usually when our kind of main thing is if you don't let us talk to you, ask questions face to face, then we're probably not going to do it.
It's quite hard, yeah. What I've read recently is that especially buyers who buy complex software development services in Gartner, they published it, 77% of them find it super difficult to buy this. So I was having an idea about building a SaaS platform for buyers so they can just skip they can do this whole thing online, which I don't think it's gonna work, but because they need that human relationship. Like there's no way to sell anything like that in this complex
Yeah, I mean,
ways.
you can do that with off the shelf kind of products, I think, or off the shelf SaaS solutions. If you're selling those things, then more likely you can go online and make your own determination and buy directly. But if it's custom work, that's not really going to add much value.
Yeah, I just know. Yeah, definitely. It's just that they complain a lot, these people, and I just think that maybe there's like a piece of the puzzle that is able to like be a SaaS platform for them. I don't know if that's like a directory or something.
You can make it less. You can make it more efficient and kind of a better experience to buy. Once they've kind of decided, I want to go with you, then that whole back end piece where you have to sign the contract and exchange information and set up a payment schedule and all that could be done. But I was speaking more about whether or not they want to buy from you in the first place, and that piece of stuff probably won't help you with that.
until the humans are no longer in that decision, then maybe it's gonna be based on like logic only. And so do you have any products that you are working on like on your own, like your own products? Because we built 3 startups and they've separated from the company, and but it's more because we're like product first agency, so we're not really involved with enterprise that much. So do you have any of your own projects or something like?
Yeah, we do. So over the years we've considered many things, and customers actually approach us to work with them if they don't have the technology arm. So right now we're involved with a new product from a startup called the Royalty Exchange. So it's a new kind of financial market for the Toronto area, because a lot of the mining is done out of Canada. So it's basically initially to create a market for royalties, mining royalties contracts. and to fractionalize those and track them on the blockchain. So this company is a startup, and we're creating this product together with them, and we're the technology arm, as I said.
But have you ever had your own product where you came up with the idea as like one of the founders?
So we do have we run the entire company on something called Lychee, which is our operational and project management system. It has integrations with HubSpot, QuickBooks, and Jira, among other things, and it's basically how we run the business. Many of our customers have seen this. There's a mobile component to it as well, and vast around about whether or not we want to commercialize that. So that's still a possibility. We would have to invest quite a bit more to bring it up to bring it to market, but there's a lot there that it does: time and billing, and like I said, project management, resource management, operations management. So that's something we're thinking about.
Yeah. So what's the kind of vision moving forward, maybe for the agency 5 years from now? Do you want to keep growing the number of employees and be more like HR, like human driven? The value is basically in your staff, or do you want to like separate some of the products and build like a separate company just from like a startup, or do you want to do something else?
I mean, I think the product side, whenever we decide to productize something, it has to really become a separate company just to keep the motivations clear. So the motivation for this company is to service our customers, to deliver great service, and to run difficult and fun projects, and to have a good place to work, that kind of a culture play. When it comes to product company, there's a different set of things. Like it's about how you market the product, what features, how fast you can grow.
Yeah.
It's just a different set of concerns. So I think that if we ever did that, we would be spinning off the product pretty quickly. And again, that's pretty much how it worked with the Royalty Exchange. We kicked it off in-house and formalized a separate entity just to keep those lines clean. So now the Jonah Group is consulting for that new company.
Do you have any book recommendation for people who want to learn more about building successful products, or something that you would really recommend to a startup founder?
I've forgotten the name, the author of this book, but he wrote a book long back called Life After Television. Let me just Google it.
Never heard about that.
He's recently written Life After Google.
Like okay, we'll link to the book. So Life After Television.
George Gilder.
Okay.
So he's a very famous kind of prognosticator, and in his book Life After Television, he pretty much predicted 90% of what eventually happened with technology and the internet taking over, and the advent of streaming platforms and online media, news media especially. And he's now written another one, Life After Google, which is something that people can't really understand right now, I think, in terms of a world without Google, or where Google is not so important. But he's focusing on the advent of privacy, and data ownership, and how that's going to affect society. So we're going to have our own. We're going to have our much more heavier control over our personal data, and we'll be the ones that decide whether or not that can be sold and to whom, which is of course not Google or Amazon or Facebook's business model. So I would look to that. I would look to a much more decentralized world in the future, and figure out what that's going to look like and how you can serve that.
Yeah, that's already kind of happening, right? With the whole Facebook thing, I think. Maybe the start of it. So do you have any favorite apps on your phone you use daily that make you more productive, or just for fun?
I use Wine app. You Need a Budget. I love that little app. So you take it around with you, and if you go to lunch, if you pay with your phone, then you can just grab the receipt from the phone and quickly enter it. It knows where you are, so it kind of suggests everything for you, and then you automatically have a little budget that you can use for your spending. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, we've built an app, Spendy, that like monitors your personal behavior and spending habits, and there's an AI and recommends, like, it's connected to banks. It recommends your future spending. So it's a bit different, but
okay, it sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's like one of the we have like 4 million downloads on it, so it's pretty like the one of the most, it's one of the most popular. It's a separate company now, but it's
so you spun it off too, see?
Yeah. Definitely. So, my last question, maybe, do you have a favorite founder or like somebody you follow throughout your career or agency owner?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's, this is the obvious answer, but I love Elon Musk,
Oh,
what he's been able to do.
yeah, a lot of
Just
people say him. Yeah.
Elon the disruptor, they call him. So I'm waiting for Starlink to be spun off because
Hmm.
everything he says he's going to do, he does, and somehow people don't believe it because it sounds so outlandish. And then when it happens, they try to say that, oh, it was obvious, it was inevitable that that would happen. But he's definitely someone who moves the show, and he makes the world a lot more exciting. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely. So, Jeremy, thank you very much for being here. If people want to connect with you, they are from Canada, or maybe not, maybe they want to consult with you on something. How can they do that? How can they find your company online or connect with you?
Yeah, well, we're at jonahgroup.com, JONAH group.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jeremy Chan. If you look for me there, Jeremy Chan Jonah, you'll find me. There's some articles out there that I've written as well, so they should lead you back to the website.
Awesome. So we'll link down below everything you just mentioned. But thank you again for stopping by and sharing insights. And it was a great speaking with you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, nice to talk to you too.